What's up, guys? Dwight here with Defying Finance. I wanted to go over a couple quick things. This video will be on stable coins. I'm taking a break here from work, so I wanted to try to punch a couple of these out just to kind of talk about what's going on with UST, which is a stable coin. If you've heard of Terra Luna, has to do with that. I wanted to bring up an article here. Let me bring this up. This is, I'm going to go full screen here. Now, this is from May 11th. Janet Yellen talking about stable coins, and I think this is that beginning. They're looking for a reason to come after stable coins because, in a way, they sort of compete with US dollars, although they buy US Treasuries. Well, some of these buy US Treasuries to back their stability as a stable coin, right? But we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. I got to keep this sort of brief because I have a couple other videos to make. But you can see that they're using this as an opportunity. And I want to show you a couple of these charts. I know some of you have been hearing about this on other YouTube channels, and I just wanted to wait to make the video until I got a little more clarity over another day or two. So anyway, this is Janet Yellen coming out saying that basically they need to label these as significant risk, which in some ways there is a lot of risk to some of these. So you got to be careful. I want to pull up Luna's chart here. Let me get rid of the volume. You can see what happened to Luna. I mean, it just got absolutely murdered. I think you're going to see this happen with a lot of cryptos as we head into this market. They're going to get just murdered. You're going to see a lot of cryptos finally die off. There's another video I'm going to do on the SEC, what Gary Gensler is talking about, how a lot of these are going to be considered securities and they want to regulate it. There's more going on where the CFTC wants to regulate these as commodities. So there's going to be this battle. And unfortunately, if you're holding a lot of crypto, you're in for a rough ride. But anyway, there'll also be great opportunities. But you can see what's happened here with Terra Luna. But here's the stable coin, right? I mean, this just got absolutely slaughtered. You can see what happened here. Of course, this was a very quick trend that had a major correction, but this is supposed to be a stable coin, right? Now, some of these places are talking about buying Bitcoin, right, and holding them on their balance sheet to help back their currencies. But the problem with a stable coin like this holding on to other cryptos is they can have large fluctuations. So you have to have a very small percentage of your holdings or your reserves if you're going to have a stable coin, very small percentage in crypto, right? Otherwise, if you have a massive sell-off, here's what can happen. So the question really becomes now, what's going to happen with other stable coins? So I think this is the canary in the coal mine. You're going to begin to see this start to happen with other ones, other projects that are out there. There's a lot of stable coins out there, at least attempting to be a stable coin. The question is USDT next? Is Tether going to be the next one? I think that will be the one that if it collapses, the US Treasury, since they're the ones who manage the currency, the US Treasury is really going to step in. Now, I don't know if this turns into a too big to fail type of thing. There's some sort of bailout for people or some institution. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen with that. We'll have to see. But if we pull this up, I want to show something. Now, this is a recent article, April 13th, 2022. Crypto firm Tether to further reduce holdings in commercial debt and stablecoin reserves. Now, the reason they're doing this is exactly what I'm saying is if they have this, think of a pinwheel, and they have so much cash, they have so much Bitcoin, they have so much commercial paper, corporate bonds, all this type of stuff. But one of those starts to implode, it drags the value backing that stable coin down. So all of a sudden you think you have $1, but you start to find out you really only have 75 cents, right? Or 50 cents, or even less, depending on how what their holdings are. So Tether if we look at their breakdown, and now these can be changing, right? This is a breakdown. When was this article? Just to make sure we're clear here. May 13th, 2021. So this is a year ago. Keep that in mind. Now they're talking about dropping their commercial paper some, which means they're probably going back to cash. Let me zoom in for you so you can see that a little bit better. So right here, it used to be 65.39% at that time, at least, was commercial paper. Now back to this article, the more recent one, they are going to be changing that. So this says USDT stablecoin will cut its holdings of commercial paper further than the current 30% total reserves. So that's like, if we go back here, this is the further breakdown of this cash and cash equivalents. That's like an accounting term, cash equivalents. It has to do with just the short-term treasuries. Think of that, like things that are less than 90 days that an accountant might consider something that's equivalent as cash, like a US Treasury or something like that. That just we'll leave it there. You can go Google that term up. From an accounting perspective, you need to know what that means. But anyway, looking at this breakdown, what's kind of funny is you see this 12.55%, that's secured loans, 9.96% are corporate bonds, right, and precious metals, and 1.64% in other investments. Now keep in mind this was a year ago, but this part in corporate bonds, right, and then you also have commercial paper, which is 65% of this. They are only holding 3.87% cash. Okay, so what I want you to pay attention to, the thing that we do not know is this: how much of this commercial paper are high yield bonds, high yield corporate paper? Well, let's go take a look at what's happening to high yield, right? As the Fed is raising interest rates, the value of those bonds that were bought at the lower rates are just getting crushed. Right, look at this fall. Now it's not significant percentage wise compared to like our crypto market, what we're used to, but a 13% fall in the value of those assets that are backing a very large percent of Tether, they're losing value. So you can see why back here they're talking about reducing the amount that they hold, which means what's probably happening on the back end of this that we can't really see is they are selling. Let's see, what's the date down there? January 2021. Now they talked about it in April. They could have been selling earlier, possibly in this zone, but look how much value had already been lost, right? So they're probably going to cash this number. If it's reported again later, will probably be much higher. But the point is there value being lost on the back end of this and you just don't know it yet? I think that's going to end up being revealed at some point. Now keep in mind, the Tether is used a lot for trading Bitcoin, right? That's usually a big trading pair, liquidity pair in markets. And if Tether starts to collapse, you're going to have to look for other ways to swap out of Bitcoin. If you're a trader, if you're holding, you don't really care yet, right? But it can still affect the short-term price, at least, of Bitcoin as traders panic and they try to sell out, and Tether is collapsing, but they're selling the Bitcoin trying to get into something else, right? There's a lot of variables here. But I think what is going to ultimately save this stable coin market, I think it's going to be US dollar coin. So US dollar coin, it's custodied by one of the huge banks in New York, BNY Mellon. And now I don't have the exact breakdown of their stuff either. The last I heard is it's somewhat similar, right? 61% of its reserves were cash or cash equivalents. Well, I don't know the breakdown of their cash equivalents either, but I know this is a large investment bank that's handling it. I trust the audits that are coming through here. Matter of fact, they were audited actually not too long ago. I don't know if it's in this article or not. I can't remember. But I think US dollar coin is going to end up being one of the premier stable coins. Now, that's not to say it can't experience something similar, I'll give you an example. What if the main backing of US dollar coin is US Treasuries, for example? Okay, so say they've been holding, I don't know, 30% in US Treasuries, or let's say 50% to make the math a little easier. If they're holding 50% in US Treasuries, but at the time they were buying these treasuries at 2%, right? Long term, or let's say 1% on a 10-year treasury or something, right? And all of a sudden it's the 10 years actually at 3, but let's say it goes to 2 from that 1 to 2%. Well, you have to discount that note in order to sell it. You have to discount that treasury. So someone's not going to want to buy your treasury at 1% when they can just go get new ones at 2%, right? So you have to sell that treasury at a discounted value for that person to make up the difference, right? So it's possible they experience something similar, but here's the thing: if that happened, that means your regular bond market's completely destroyed too. The whole thing's just going to be collapsing, right? Which I think that's entirely possible, but it wouldn't matter if you're in a stable coin at that point. You'll have a lot of baby boomers getting crushed in their bonds as well. So I mean, that would be a whole different type of ball game. But I think USDC is going to end up being one of the safest places to be overall. I think over the years they'll come out on top as the place, at least for US citizens to swap those cryptos back and forth. I think that'll be one of the main custodied stable coins overall, and that's what we're trying to do as investors, right? We're always looking at these things. Since this is relatively new, you don't really know exactly what's going to happen, but you have to be able to pivot to the direction things are going. So stable coins are definitely here to stay. The question is, which one's going to survive? And I think regulation is definitely coming for stable coins. We need to be careful, but also I think you're going to experience things like Tether getting delisted potentially from larger places. Like I think it's part of Binance.us, right? Now that's not to say it can't be used somewhere else in another country, another exchange, but these places have to be able to trade back and forth and accept your liquidity, right? Otherwise, what's the point as a U.S. citizen? So this is going to be a rough ride for crypto in general, but I'm really interested to see how this plays out. Now, remember, I think it was, 2 years ago, I could probably pull up an article. What's his name? He was an attorney. He was an attorney at Coinbase. Gosh, he was a U.S. comptroller of the currency. I forget his name. You could put it in the comments below. But anyway, he put through something allowing banks to now be nodes on a network, right? So I think what the government is setting up structure-wise, now this may be for their own version of a digital currency, but these banks are going to be allowed to be nodes on a network, which would obviously make an incredibly powerful, fast network. Now, it's going to be centralized, right? To some level, most likely, at least I believe that's going to be the case. But it would be an incredibly fast network, right? Very, very cheap to operate. And I think that's kind of where we're going. The question is, does US dollar coin run on that? And I think it's more likely that Algo ends up being one of the main networks in the United States because of their research and what they've done through MIT and our large schools, the research papers and everything that have been developed through that. So the government's more likely to use a network like that. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but that's kind of my thought of where it's going. But anyway, I hope that was valuable for kind of what's happening right now in the markets. Make sure you subscribe, like, share this with somebody else. And also, if a ad pops up at some point, I don't know if you're watching this in the future or not, but just watch the ad. It's free content, right? Doesn't hurt you or cost you anything. But anyway, I'm out of here. I'm going to try to make another video. I want to talk about kind of what's happening in crypto. I had a huge sell-off today, and most of that is because Gary Gensler from the SEC talked about regulation, and everybody's freaking out. But anyway,